In this lesson, we're going to practice simplifying expressions. So in order to simplify an expression, it's important to know the parts of it first. So what's the first thing we need to know? Well, it's a term. A term is a constant or the product of a constant and a variable. Okay. It can also be more than one variable. It can be a pair of variables, three variables. It can be variables with exponents. All right. But terms are going to be separated by addition or subtraction. So a coefficient of a term is the constant that is in front of the variable. It's what is multiplying by the variable in the term. So for example, in 3x, the coefficient is 3, okay? And the variable is x. When we write x, the coefficient is 1, all right? So even though when you write just x, there doesn't seem to be anything in front of it, it is an imaginary invisible 1. So think of x as 1 times x so that you can remember that that's the coefficient. Now, like terms are terms that are either constants or they share the same variable. All right. And when we have those variables, I do mean that x's and x's go together, but an x and an x squared do not. X squared has to go with x squared. So that variable does have to share the same exponent as well. All right. So anything that you have the same, they're either constants or they have the same variable raised to the same exponent is considered a like term. So 7 and 4 are both constants. They are like terms. 5x and 3x are both a number and an x, so they are like terms. One more example would be n squared and 9n squared because they both have n squared. All right. So how do we combine like terms? Well, the great news is combining like terms is as simple as adding and subtracting. You're going to identify what things match, and then you're going to group them together, and you're going to either add or subtract the coefficients, depending on how the problem is set up. So, practice problem. We want to simplify 2x squared plus 3x plus 7 plus x squared plus 4x plus 5. Okay. Seems slightly complicated, but it's not, promise. We're going to start by identifying the like terms. So notice that 2x squared is going to be grouped with x squared. 3x is grouped with 4x, and 7 is grouped with 5. So anything with x squared is in red, anything with just x is in blue, and anything that's a constant, so it doesn't have a variable, is in green. So now we are going to rearrange it to group everything together that is a like term. And now we can simplify 2x squared plus x squared, remembering that this is really a 1x squared. So 2 plus 1 is 3, so 2x squared plus x squared is 3x squared. Similarly, 3x and 4x, 3 plus 4 is 7, so we get 7x. And 7 plus 5 is 12. So we have now combined our like terms. Ta-da! Another practice problem for you. 3x squared plus 7x plus 9 plus 7x squared plus 9x plus 8. Give this a try and then come right back. All right, so we're going to group our like terms. So 3x squared is a like term with 7x squared. 7x is a like term with 9x, and 9 is a like term with 8. So we have now 3x squared plus 7x squared plus 7x plus 9x plus 9 plus 8. 3 plus 7 is 10, so we have 10x squared. 7 plus 9 is 16, so we have 16x. And 9 plus 8 is 17. So our final answer for this is 10x squared plus 16x plus 17. All right, we're going to start rewriting expressions now because this goes directly in context of simplifying them. All right. Now, a couple of things that you're going to want to recognize are some ways that we can say different things. So, for example, if I said minus, the difference, decreased by, less than, subtracted from, these are all indications that I want to do subtraction. Notice that A minus B is A minus B. The difference of A and B is A minus B. A is decreased by B. All right, so for example, I have $10 and I decrease that amount by $3. How much do I have now? Well, I have $7, right? Because I have 10 minus 3. B less than A. Notice that when I say less than A, my letters have swapped to get the same result. And if I have 3 less than $10, how much money do I have? Well, I have $7. If you ever get confused, put it in terms of money because your brain generally does really well with money because it's something that we use every day. And B subtracted from A, again, is going to be A minus B. So pay attention to those wordings. For multiplication, you might say A times B, or you might say the product of A and B. For division, you're going to say A divided by B, or you're going to say the quotient of A and B, or the ratio of A and B. You could also say B is divided into A. If you're saying divided into, that means the first variable or number is on the bottom, okay, of the fraction. And if it's divided by, okay, then that first variable is on the top. So let's just like look at a few examples, all right? So the difference of 14x and 9, well, is that addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? And is it in the order we see it or the opposite order? Well, difference means subtraction, and we actually get to just keep the order. So we're going to say it's 14x minus 9. All right. The quotient of 8y squared and 3, quotient means division, and we take the first variable and divide it by the second variable. So I can write it like this, or I can write it as a fraction. Now, I personally like writing as a fraction, 8y squared over 3. That's a preference for me. But just notice here, if you ever get confused about it, a division symbol is just representative of a fraction because division is saying some number divided by some number, right? And so that should look like a fraction. So in this case, we have 8y squared is my top number and 3 is my bottom number. So that's where that comes from. All right, what about 12 more than y? Well, more than is the exact opposite of less than. So we know that it has to be addition. So 12 more than y is also known as 12 added to y. Notice that more than and less than are both going to be the swapped format. Okay, so 12 more than y we write as y plus 12. As a note, addition and multiplication are both what we call commutative. That means order does not matter. However, it is nice to write it in the way that it's said because then it's easier to follow along when you're reviewing your work later. All right, 7 less than 49x squared. Now, less than, again, is very much like more than. It's the numbers or variables or terms are switched, okay? So in this case, 7 less than 49x squared is 49x squared minus 7, all right? Subtraction and division are not commutative. That means order absolutely matters, and you have to put them in the order that's said. All right, let's try another one. 8 times the sum of x and y. So we need to recognize some keywords. Times means we're multiplying. The sum means we're adding, okay? So because we're multiplying by the sum, we have to first deal with the sum. The sum of x and y is going to be x plus y, and it's in parentheses, okay? So if we're doing something to a sum or we're doing something to a difference, that sum or difference has to be in parentheses, all right? And then because we're doing 8 times that, we're going to put the 8 outside of the parentheses. So 8 times quantity, x plus y. All right, what about the sum of 8 times x and y? How does that read? Okay, so let's read it again. The sum, then we have a preposition of. The things that come directly after that are part of the sum. So the sum of 8 times x. That tells us this is what's part of the sum, okay? And y, all right? Also part of the sum. And is usually what's going to be what separates your words, okay? So 8x and y, because 8 times x is 8x. All right, we're going to do another one. How about the quotient of 12x and 2? You don't have to simplify this, but quotient, which operation is that? Is it adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Well, it is dividing. 12x is going to be divided by 2. All right, so here we can write as 12x divided by 2 with the division symbol, or you can write it as a fraction, 12x over 2. One of the things that you can do when you write it as a fraction is you can then go ahead and do the simplification if you need to. Whereas when we write it in the symbol with the division symbol, sometimes it's going to be a little harder to do that. So just know that, again, a lot of times when we're working with algebra, we'll write it in fraction format. All right, I hope that was helpful and you're ready to evaluate, simplify, combine like terms, all of that with your expressions.